Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another great podcast. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in today, and we welcome you as well. Be sure to refer this show to your friends, neighbors, relatives on iTunes and Google Play. People can tune in there. You can also subscribe to all the wonderful reviews we do, the Siberian Husky puppy videos we do, and also, of course, the great podcast we do on the Chris Voss Show on youtube.com/Chris Voss. We have a most excellent guest today, as always, Vin Clancy. He's one of the most infamous marketers in the world, known for his cutting-edge growth hacks and genius business ideas. His growth hacking book raised over $100,000 in pre-orders, which he supported with a 100 speaking tour date in countries around the world. He has spoken in 40 different cities in 10 different countries. He's featured in publications like Fortune, BuzzFeed, the Daily Telegraph, the New Statesman, Wired, Vice Incorporated, and many more. And he coaches founders to growth hack their own businesses. He founded the online magazines planetivity.com.
That's it. Yeah.
There we go. And screenrobot.com, which received nearly 20 million page views with zero marketing spent the first 2 years, while content he has overseen for other clients has received over 150 million page views so far. Right now, he teaches company founders, influencers, and marketing managers how to grow their companies through a combination of rapid social media growth and guerrilla community marketing tactics or management tactics, and in his private coaching groups and through consulting with marketing executives. Welcome to the show, Vin. How are you doing, bud?
I'm excellent out here in Beverly Hills. Everything is good in life.
There you go. So give us some of your plugs so people can look you up on the internet, Vin, and follow some of what you do.
Sure. So my new growth hacking book, Ace the Game, you can get at amzn.to. That is the 100 best growth hacks in the world.
Nice.
As you'll probably know, most books in the marketing space are horrible. It's the author telling a few stories about their background. There's no real value. It's like, listen to me or perish. So I didn't want to do that. So I curated about 40 different of the best growth marketers and growth hackers in the world to give their one biggest growth hack that could help a small business grow. And that's what Ace the Game is.
Now, for the average layman, give us an idea, the person who really doesn't understand maybe startups or growth hacking. What is growth hacking, and what is it that you do for them?
Sure. So growth hacking is using the power of the internet to get competitive advantages. Growth hacking is the reason Dropbox, Uber, Airbnb grew massive without traditional marketing spend. So here are some examples of growth hacking that you could pick up right now. So there's software called Find That Lead. This will find anyone's email address in the world. So think how valuable that could be for prospecting. There's software like Lead Feeder, which every visitor who lands on their website, it'll find out their name, their email address, and if you use drip software, it will also put them in an email drip sequence so that every invisible lead suddenly becomes someone who you can sell to. So hacking is all of these little bits of software. Rebump is an email tool. If you email someone and they don't reply within 24 hours, Rebump will email them every 24 hours forever.
I actually use Rebump. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, so there's all these little things that when you're starting a business you wouldn't know about that can make a massive difference that if we were running a traditional business we just couldn't do. There's a massive redistribution of wealth going on because anyone can start an internet business and change their lives like I did.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing all the different tips and stuff you can do. So if I'm who can really use your services? Can a single entrepreneur who's just trying to maybe build a website or build a business or writing a book, all the way up to someone who's trying to build, the next $1 billion Facebook or $1 billion, Google, whatever. Who's the best person as a target for your book?
Essentially, small businesses will probably get more out of it. Once you get bigger, it's really just a case of optimizing ad spend. That's going to be the main way you get traffic in. But You know, that's kind of why I've grown so fast in this space, because everyone was saying Facebook ads are the answer. Well, for a lot of businesses, they're very hard to get right. You have to spend thousands before you hit an inflection point. So I focus on, here's how to get traffic for free or paying like $20 a month for a bit of software. So that's what these growth hacks are for. But really, anyone can pick them up. You know, we have people in the book who spent $60 million on Facebook ads. We have to run big agencies. So there's a lot in there. And
I think you lost your audio there, man. You there?
Yep.
Okay. So go ahead. You said you had people that were spending 60.
Yes. So there's people who have spent like $16 million on Facebook ads who have donated a growth hack to ace the game. There's people there who run big growth agencies. There are people there who have helped startups get millions of users. But really, all of us have an internet connection. So all of us have these opportunities at our fingertips. I'm just one of the first to bring them out of the shadows of Silicon Valley companies and into the hands of the average layman who runs a company.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, all the different little tricks you can take and use. And sometimes these little just programs and apps, I've been using, you know, stuff like Rebump or different things to give me an edge on the game. Sometimes those little things just give you that little extra juice and that edge that can make all the difference when it comes down to it. I know I was lucky in the early days of Wild West social media. Of course, I used to try everything back in the day because there were so many new things and coming out, and it was crazy some of the things that you could find that could really help hack your growth and grow your accounts, grow your followers, grow people you're engaging with. And a long time ago, I remember when social media really started, I came from a sales background and owning companies. And I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about on social media or what I wanted to do with it. But what I did know is that I needed to have an audience because you can build the greatest app, the greatest product, the greatest, I don't know, your greatest persona online. You can put out probably Ben Franklin sort of quality stuff that's, you know, incredibly intellectual or highly entertaining. But if you can't get anybody to watch it, if you can't get an audience for it, it's just going to die on the vine. And I think there's some irony there in saying the word vine, such as the Twitter app. So you've got to have an audience. So you've got to do different strategies like what you're talking about to take and get growth, build an audience, build a membership, build customers base, all these different things. Because, you know, I meet so many different app builders that are just like, we're just going to build that app and it's going to be so great that we're not going to do any marketing and people are just going to join it and it's going to be huge, bigger than Facebook. And you're like, keep smoking that rock.
Well, I always said that content is 10% what you produce and 90% distribution. And the example I always give is Harry Styles, the singer of One Direction. His first tweet of 2015 was the word burger. 250,000 retweets. Now, that was not great content, but his distribution number of followers was massive, so that it made a massive difference. So I'm in complete agreement with you there. Yes, it needs good content, but yeah, most people focus way too much on how it looks or what it is, and not how many people are going to see it.
Yeah, it's and some people just think, well, if I just write something really cool on my blog, it'll become huge, or, you know, if I just make the right video on YouTube, it'll become huge. There's so much more in the background that goes into these things, and people don't even realize some of the different work that goes into it, or some of the work that a lot of successful people do that go into it. Like I say, I've heard from app developers. I've heard so many app developers. They're just like, we're just going to build a great app and it will just go huge on its own. You're like, no, that's not the way it works. I mean, even Twitter and Foursquare back in the day had to go hump around at South by Southwest and beg people to like their app. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff that you have to do to grow and build and be successful in audience. And even now, you can't go to South by Southwest and have the app of the moment there at South by. It's really hard to take and pull that off. And you've got to do the work behind it. So you do different things, like you've got a coaching group, I believe.
Yes. So I run Traffic and Copy. That's a free Facebook group. I have Gold Club, my private coaching accelerator. Me and my business partner, Charlie, run. So we're mentoring people every week in that. I also have a marketing agency, which I run in the background. But really, my public-facing thing is teaching other entrepreneurs exactly how to grow their company, exactly the growth hacks one needs. And ironically, for all the methods I teach, my marketing agency quietly runs on referrals and makes way more than my internet marketing business. Yeah, so it's interesting to run these two. Some people just run a coaching business, and it's kind of like, if your only business is teaching coaches how to coach, that's very flawed. But if you've ran and grown multiple companies in the past, I think that puts you in a good position to teach. So for me, I've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for my startup. I've done 2 successful Kickstarters. I've run multiple 6-figure businesses. That's why I teach. I have the answers to most problems people throw at me. And that's ultimately what entrepreneurs need. They want to get unstuck and they want answers.
Yeah, they've got to figure out how to make it work and what to do. I've had clients before, and they've come to me and said, Chris, how can we growth hack? And how can we do more with their thing? There's all sorts of different tips and tricks and things that they can take and do. So your book goes into the details of how to set it up, what applications to use and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a video course for many of the hacks showing you click by click how to set something up, how to use something so you don't get stuck. But yeah, there's very little dialogue. There's no stories. Hey, this happened to me 2 years ago. Here's what I learned. Just like a short intro and then straight into here's 100 different hacks. So different people have come up with different ones. Some have used Eventbrite to grow webinar invites. Some people have started booking sales or getting people's emails. So it's been really interesting seeing how people attack different things and get good results.
Yeah, one of the things I've always hated, years ago when I was starting my businesses or wanting to own a business, I started reading every book I could about being in business and being a CEO long before I ever became a CEO. And I read a lot of Tom Peters books, and no slight to Tom Peters, but when I first got into business, I applied pretty much everything I learned from Tom Peters. And about 50% of his book was great and made me a lot of money. And the other 50% about bankrupted me. And looking back and going over why I ended up with the results I did, I found that a lot of these books, even Tom Peters books and a lot of these business books, like what you're referencing, they tell you the stories. And a lot of the stories are sometimes lucky flashes in the pan. And they're kind of postmodernist revision where they go, well, here's why this worked. And they come across like it was a plan or that it was meant to come together. And they kind of overlook the fact that it was more likely dumb luck. And maybe the things that someone revisionistly looking at the stories and going, well, okay, now that we can look back in hindsight, this is probably how this was successful. That may not always have been how it was successful, and it may be unique to some other different attributes. I remember one of the things Tom Peters taught me in his book, that he said, he had a nuclear workers sort of story about how if you highly trust your employees, they'll do a great job, and the people that you are highly trusted the most are the ones that will do the best jobs. And he was citing people who work at a nuclear facility, and of course the power and trust that you have to put into someone who works there. Turns out that's not quite true. that premise almost bankrupted me. Just giving people ultimate trust does not guarantee the fact that they won't rip you off, steal from you, or that they'll do their job. In fact, there's a lot of other factors that go into a nuclear worker actually being good at what they do, and a lot of it has to do with resume and hiring and quality person, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't have to do with highly just trusting people blindly. So I like that your book doesn't have the stories in it, because I hate that revisionist stuff where it's like, well, we got successful and here's how we did it, or here's how we think that we did it based upon looking in hindsight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing I've found. People will be like, one day I decided to have a positive mindset, or one day I learned this secret. And then, so what I normally dig into the economics of it. How did you actually get your first customers? Oh, we were on a daily deal site and that was the first 2,000. Right, there we go. That's how we normally get to the answer. What was the actual thing that brought the traffic in, the first customers?
Yeah.
You can, in retrospect, you can say it was because we had a great company culture, but it's not true. It's the economics which actually make something happen.
Yeah, I've seen people that have horrible company cultures be incredibly successful. Twitter, excuse me. Oh, sorry, just had something come out there. And still have horrible corporate cultures. Excuse me. I mean, Twitter for the first several years of its inception, probably the first 10, had a horrible company culture. And I remember one vendor telling me, I think a couple years ago at a conference, that it's a wonder that Twitter hadn't installed a safety net in their lobby there in the new building they have in San Francisco, in the, I'm trying to remember the dark area that the blighted area that they kind of reconfigured there. But it's a wonder they didn't have Foxconn nets put in, because the morale at Twitter was so low. And Twitter for years was a shit show, with the fight between the founders and the board of directors for a long time. I remember talking with Fred Wilson early on and giving him some recommendations. The VC from Union Square Partners Ventures, and I didn't realize at the time when he had some emergency board meetings, with what I recommended, that there was so much infighting going on, and his emails kind of belied that point, that there was contention there in the office. And years later, we found out how much there really was. But yeah, I mean, culture is great. I mean, yeah, it doesn't guarantee success. I built great cultures at my companies. They worked great for years, but then all of a sudden either markets turned or conditions turned. I built great cultures, or at least I thought I did, in my mortgage company. But once interest rates went up, the business went down. And once the market exploded in the collapse of 2008, what kind of company culture I have didn't mean shit. So in fact, when the Great Recession hit in the 2008 things, a lot of things I built with a lot of great ideas, concepts, and things that you would attribute to being their success didn't mean shit, because the economics just were not there and could not support the business with the collapse of the economy. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, and it's a great point that you bring, because I do always hate books that are backwards looking and they try and solve the puzzle of how they were successful. And then they just kind of hope that was why they were successful, like you say.
Yeah, 100%. So by focusing on, yeah, like the economics of it, you tend to get to the truth. Those other things add fuel to the fire, but like you say, I mean, the stereotype is the racist, sexist salesman who brings in big money in offices. For some reason, he never gets fired. It's amazing. You can get away with anything. Shout at the boss. Because I used to do dead-end jobs back in the day, and it would amaze me. They're the rudest, angriest guys, but they were killing it on the board. Yeah, they just couldn't get fired. And like that extrapolates through everything. If the sales are good, a lot of things get overlooked.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I've certainly worked in a lot of environments. One of the first sales environments that I worked in was the car business. And anytime I learned so much from the used car business. And yeah, those guys were beyond toxic. The stuff that they would take and do, and the attitudes and ways they had about doing business. But yeah, they were the guys who made all the money and were the most successful. And yeah, it's interesting to me. So I'm glad your book does that. I'm glad your book goes into the different topics of how to actually be successful, and what the key things are, because that's what I want. I don't want to read a bunch of stories. I want to know, what can I apply to my business today, right now? How do I get successful? What steps do I need to take and do? What apps do I need to take and utilize? and let me get on the way to success instead of reading a bunch of stories. So that works out really well.
Right, 100%, and it's always just really exciting for me to get these messages from people. Hey, Vin, I built a Facebook. For someone, I was always preaching build Facebook groups. People would say, well, how do I get sales if I'm just starting out? You build a Facebook group and put content on it. You get in front of your audience every day, and then when you eventually say, I have room for 2 more clients, people come to you, or I'm doing a coaching launch. But anyway, so I met someone at a networking event in LA, and he said, I watched your talk on how to build a Facebook group. I started one for cryptocurrency, now has 86,000 members within 6 months. Yeah, it's just amazing when people get the right idea, plus the dynamite of, my growth hacks. It's great, powerful.
Facebook groups have been a really huge way, both good and bad. In America, they've been a way for some really weird politics to go on, let's put it that way. But they've been a very powerful way for people to build community and build people of like-minded ideas, promotional stuff. The Chris Voss Show Podcast has its own Facebook group on Facebook. They almost seem to be more effective than having a Facebook page. I don't know. What do you feel about that?
100%. If you're a small business and you don't have and you can't afford a well-leveraged paid media strategy, it's an amazing place to start. But and it's unfortunately, this 2018 it's just become a lot harder to make Facebook ads successful. The ad costs have gone up 50 to 100%. Facebook banning a lot more ad accounts, banning a lot more ads. So like the easy days of Facebook ads are over, but Facebook groups are still being pushed because Facebook wants people to make friends outside their network. So yeah, I'm super stoked with my Facebook group. Still delivering big results for me. And yeah, if you get it on a page, you get nothing unless you pay Facebook every single time.
Yeah, and it's really gotten bad. I guess with the new algorithms that were recently put up, all my friends own Facebook pages. They're like, man, I literally have to pay Facebook if I want to get seen by my own audience. It's just sad. And I warned people for years on that back in the day. I warned my clients, I'm like, you need to take advantage of all these little tools and techniques, and you need to be daily taking advantage of building your audience with all the different toys that we have and free stuff that we have, because back then a lot of the apps were free. They didn't charge you for stuff. And I'm like, you need to take advantage of this stuff while it's still free, because it's not going to be free forever. And more of my clients were like, some of my clients were just like, oh yeah, whatever, Chris, I'm sure this will all be free. We can come back to this some other time, and we'll just get back to this when we get around to it. And I'm like, hey man, it's not going to stay free forever. It's the Wild West now, and you got to grab and fist what you can, but it's not going to stay like this forever. And they were just like, oh yeah, Chris, whatever. You're just trying to sell us stuff. Not all my clients said this, but just some. And they're like, we'll call you in 6 months and we'll do it then when we want to get around to it. I'm like, you know what? 6 months, market's going to be way different, and you're probably going to have to pay for it. And I warned people on Facebook pages. I said, you know what? They're going to eventually charge for that stuff. You might want to build your thing on there, but they're eventually going to charge you for that. Oh, no, Chris, it's always going to be free. Facebook is free. Sure enough, everyone was all upset when they started charging, and I was like, no, I knew that was going to happen. I mean, what did you think happened? This is how freemium sort of works. And yeah, they're eventually going to charge you for it, and that's going to be it. So that's eventually what happened. And now, yeah, it's really hard. But yeah, I agree with you on Facebook groups. To start Facebook groups all the time, whether it's a Facebook group about dogs or business or your coaching, maybe private mastermind group. I've done mastermind groups in the coaching areas in the Facebook groups. All that sort of good stuff is ways to take and promote whatever you want to take and do, build community. One of the hardest things that I overlooked was not only do you have to build an audience, but you have to build a community for that audience, and give that audience basically a play space, a place where they can interact with each other, where they can talk with you, where they can talk with other members. And building community is a really hard thing to do for a lot of people, and understanding how to foment it, how to build it, how to grow it, how to keep it growing, how to keep the community healthy. how to keep it active, alive, and motivated. And that's a real big challenge. A lot of people need to learn that in not only just building an audience or community, but also how to keep your community engaged and how to have a community and keep having a community. Because a lot of people build a community, I see, and then they let it die. They just kind of eventually take it for granted.
I think if you lean heavily on paid ads, that's the only exception to you building an audience and community. And there's some people who do it really, really well. They make lots of Facebook ads until one of them optimizes well, and they scale that. As long as you have budgets, it works. But yeah, I just find the only guaranteed way you'll ever make sales is having an audience and community. You know, if you show up and help them every day and give them value, they will always buy your stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too. I mean, that's why people buy leaders. They love leaders. I think a lot of us in our, I don't know if it's a tribal thing, but in the psyche of our humanity, we look for leaders. We're looking for leaders to follow us, people to teach us, people to learn from. It's been interesting to me throughout life to realize that everyone's going through a journey and everyone's learning from everyone else. And people are looking to leaders to help them lead them, or looking for ways for people to take them into different places. And if you can build a community where you're posing yourself as a leader, as an authority, as an expert in something, you've built your knowledge base and everything else, people will tend to follow you, especially if you're engaging, if you have plenty of content. But you know, it's a thing that you constantly have to keep going and keep active in, because being a leader, you know, you just can't. A good example is you can't just become president of the United States and just go sit in your office all day and phone it in, and people will just be like, well, I'm sure he's doing a great job for the next 4 years.
Yeah, you can't watch TV all day.
Yeah. Don't tell that to our president. So leader in quotes. Yeah, it's a thing where you've got to be actively every day being that leader, doing the leadership things you need to do, engaging with your audience, talking to them, making sure that you're following through on what they need. You know, I remember one time I gave up and I got up and gave a speech somewhere, and I was about 3/4 of the way through the speech, and a guy raised his hand. And he's like, yeah, Chris, we all know what you're talking about with social media. He goes, but how can we make money and do what we want to do with our specific industry? And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about that. And it was interesting to me that the audience needed more information that was more applicable to them, and being able to have a community in that effect where an audience can go, well, yeah, that's great, but help us out with this other thing, and what can we do with here? And it really showed me that there are more questions that an audience has and needs to be able to achieve what their goals are. And it also helps me as a leader to be able to tune my my engagement with my audience and my community to take and give them what they want, and listen to them and help them on their journeys as well. And even most leaders, political leaders, have to do the same thing. Most CEO leaders have to do the same thing. They have to keep tuning their focus and what they're doing. You know, one of the things, everyone wants to be the CEO of their own company, but they don't realize once you become the CEO of your company, you've got to entertain and engage and keep interested investors. You know this, investors, they've got to entertain vendors, they've got to entertain employees, managers. You end up selling to everybody. I mean, you're a salesman for everybody, and you're an engagement tool for everybody. And it's your job to keep the wheels spinning and to keep everybody aware of what's going on. And it's a very fluid situation, because the things change as you go through, the dynamics of experiences and demands and challenges of your business go through, and you've got to somehow bring those adjustments to your business and be a leader at the same time. And when people feel you aren't a leader, they tend to dissuade themselves from you, or to move on, and they go look for other leaders. And once they attach themselves to other leaders, you're kind of out the door, if you will.
I was going to do, about a year or two ago, I was going to do my next book on it, because in terms of the memes of startups, there's, you know, with my stuff, you have the growth hacking marketing piece. with the, let's say, the hard thing about hard things, you've got the strategic growth piece. From 0 to 1, you've got the ideation piece. But there isn't really much stuff about management. So I was going to try and do a book on like how to make anyone on the street a manager. And then I spoke to one of my mentors and he said, unfortunately, it can't be taught. You just have to do it. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Yeah.
It's a hard thing to teach, to learn leadership and management. I really wish they would teach more of it in school. There's in the early grades, some of the hard aspects of learning what to do or dealing with. I mean, success is a tough thing to deal with. Learning success when you finally start making big money, how not to sabotage it, how to deal with if you do have a sabotaging personality. There's how to deal with the ego and the mindset of it all, and how to survive in that, and not, you know, become a Hitler sort of tyrant in your little business where you drive all your employees crazy in a way, and everything else. And so there's a lot of leadership skills that somehow they need to figure out how to teach. And I started preparing for being a CEO long before I ever became a CEO of my own business. I just knew I needed to prepare. But there still were a lot of challenges that, you know, once you become successful, once you become rich, once you've, you know, got plenty of money in the bank, the game changes in your head as to your motivations and staying motivated. And, you know, sometimes you come from this attitude of like, we've arrived, and what you find later is you really haven't arrived. You're just on the journey, and there really is no arrival. It's just a continual journey, and your job is to somehow have continual success on that journey. So that's always fun when it comes down to it. So, give me your plugs for your book again, and everyone can check it out and go on to probably amazon.com or your website and get it.
Yeah, so they can grab it at acethegame.com. So it's less than $100, and you get the ebook in all the digital formats. You get the video course. And you get the marketers tool belt bonuses. So that is things like my top email subject lines that get opened, a complete guide to working with influencers from someone who's built lots of 7-figure businesses, a complete guide to building chatbots. So there's a ton of different bonuses in this. And if you're looking to grow your company, you know, I really believe it's the best guide ever, because there's 100 different strategies, any one of which could be the one that you can leverage to get a lot more clients pretty much overnight. You know, people don't know about things like Linked Helper, which you do, it's a piece of software, you do a LinkedIn search, and it will automatically connect with all of those people that match that search. And if they accept your request, then it will send them a first message to begin a conversation. So that can be like 20, 30, 40 new connections a day. So think how powerful that is to grow your business. And we've got 100 of those things in this book. And I feel like I'm giving these secrets to everyone. It's super exciting that I've written Ace the Game.
That's awesome. And I can attest to what you said too. Years ago, I was like one of the top 1,000 people on Twitter in like 2008 when it was brand new. And I just saw it and discovered it and went, wow, this is a powerful tool. I can get people to go traffic to websites, and this is pretty amazing. So I started doing my own, if you will, growth hacking of it, finding apps. Back in the early days, there were a lot of different apps like Ping FM and different things that you could take and use. I think it was Ping FM, something FM. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Ping, because Ryan Meerkat is one of my friends. But there was so many different apps you can use. And I remember years ago, I had one of the gals who I guess was a professional in LinkedIn. She wrote me and said, you know, this is kind of a joke that you're on these lists and you're like a top social media, whatever, but you really suck. And I think I had like, I don't know, a couple hundred people or something on LinkedIn that I was friends with or something. And she said, you really suck at LinkedIn. I don't really know how you can have the nads to claim your LinkedIn thing. And so I got a little angry at first, and then I thought, you know what, she's right. I need to go master LinkedIn. And so that's what I did. I went and mastered LinkedIn. And now my problem with LinkedIn is I have 30,000 friends on LinkedIn, which is the max. And I'm constantly trying to clean it out and be able to allow some of the higher reputation people in and clean out some of the riffraff and spam. but it's been a huge thing for my business to be on LinkedIn. I've built a huge LinkedIn group over there, a community over there, social media, tech, and news. And it has, I think, 130,000 people in it now. And it grows about 2,000 to 3,000 people a month into that group. And I don't have to pay for any of that growth, any of it. It's just crazy. And so I agree with you. I mean, you know, taking and having a great Facebook profile, and what you'd be surprised, I don't know if you'd be surprised, but I'm always surprised at how many of my social media leaders that appear on all the lists that I do, they just treat LinkedIn like a stupid stepchild because they just don't get it. And I'm just like, you're actually just blowing one of the best resources that you can take and possibly do. For like what you say, you can get hundreds of customers every day, or potential customers every day, and you don't have to pay for any of it. I mean, I get flooded every day with people who want to follow me on LinkedIn, and I have probably, I don't know, thousands of endorsements that people have done. I don't even like endorsements or ask for them, and if anybody says they're going to do them, I dissuade them from doing them. But I have all these people that just do it and build my endorsement base without even question. I don't pay for any of it. My 130,000 group that I have on LinkedIn, I can send 4 direct emails to the whole group every month directly, or every week, or I can send 1 every week for a month. Let's put it that way. And that goes directly to their emails. It gets huge amounts of opens, huge.
Wow. Nice.
And so basically it's 130,000 email list, assuming I'm not sure all 130,000 are getting the direct email blast that we do weekly, but, you know, making sure that thing goes out, making sure there's relevant content in it, there's interesting content in it, is just a really big deal. And so, yeah, so I agree with you. I mean, stuff like LinkedIn is great free ways to build traffic, business, customers, and everything else.
Yeah, I don't know of a single platform that my friends have had more success on than LinkedIn in the past year. It's crazy how much engagement people can get from it.
Yeah, in fact, we even put the podcast into the feed on LinkedIn, and now that they accept video, that's been really huge for getting us subscribers to the podcast. Putting up the teaser video on the LinkedIn news feed, and now that you can upload video to LinkedIn, which is a new thing actually, and that thing gets a lot of views, and it's just an awesome resource when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much possibility to grow your business for free. And then once you've validated everything, you know which offers convert, and you pull paid ads on it. That's when you become unstoppable. Yep,
there you go. There you go. Well, we certainly appreciate coming to the show, Vin, and sharing your stuff with us. Give us your plugs one more time where people can look at the websites.
amzn.to to grab my new book. I'm Vin Clancy on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. But yeah, acethegame.com is the best growth hacking book ever.
Sounds good. I certainly appreciate my audience for tuning in. You guys are a wonderful audience, especially those of you listening this far. We certainly appreciate it. Be sure to refer the show to your friends, neighbors, relatives, and let them know to take and subscribe on Google Play and on iTunes. You can find it on there as well. You can also go to youtube.com/Chris Voss and hit that bell notification button so you can get all the downloads and uploads of all the new notifications of what we do. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We certainly appreciate it. We'll see you next time.